Welcome back, guys, to another episode. I'm Aiden. I'm here with my speakers and my guest speaker. Ale is a business that I run and I own, and with that, I help young people and all people be all stars in their lives through learning a set of values that we're going to speak about today. Also, with MVP Workshops, a brilliant organization and group that allow me to have this platform to build and work with these young people. And starting with that, I have Joanna.
Hi.
And to her left, I have Tatiana,
Hello.
Miley,
Hi.
Whitney,
Bonjour.
and Troy.
Hi.
And today we're going to speak about management and self-discipline, counseling and accountability, values and principles, and love. But with all of those, we're going to tie them under drug misuse and how that aligns with, and how drug misuse affects our lives, even though we don't take drugs, but how it shapes our lives and our perspective about life itself. So today's going to be a very interesting conversation, hearing from our young people, especially seeing and how they've seen it in their local areas, maybe schools, and we're going to be very transparent and open as well. So as we're speaking about drug misuse today, guys, our first topic is management and self-discipline. So I'll go first as an example with drug misuse. I've seen, especially in London, in America, I've seen how lack of management and self-discipline has enforced a culture, a negative culture with drugs, and it's kind of a common use in certain cultures I've seen, and that lack of guidance or management, should we say, it spreads. It's insidious, meaning it starts small but it grows out into different areas. So with a lack of management and self-discipline, people don't really always know or understand how using any class of drug really affects themselves and their community. And yeah, it's a tough one that I've seen a lot of hurt people come by as a result of drugs, like from babies to adults or to people literally out of their minds of drugs, hurting other people because they don't know what they're doing. Has anybody else had any experience? I know with MVP Media's Joe, you've probably seen some stuff growing up across the world because you lived everywhere. So
Yeah. I mean, it is a big topic. It is a big topic for our young people as well. I've seen the effects of drug abuse.
Right.
I've seen the effects of drug abuse for people, individuals, which has been very detrimental. Losing their jobs, losing their house, losing everything.
Right.
But also what it does to the families as well.
That
That's, I think, very important to also know that it's not only yourself that you're hurting, it's also the people around you. And seeing that kind of pain in families that have to deal with with addiction, it's hard. It definitely is.
So who wants to go first? Like, who has seen or who has thought about, oh wow, that person's life is hurting because they didn't manage themselves, or they didn't manage themselves to come out of a drug addiction. Go on, Wendy.
This is not real life. I saw this on a TV show, but this lady, she was pregnant and she was a heavy heroin user, and she would always inject herself with crack, and she was pregnant, if I didn't say that already. And then her baby ended up being born addicted to heroin. And then because she was so off herself, she was high while giving birth, she wasn't able to take accountability for the fact that her diligence with drugs caused her baby to be born in such a state, and then she lost the baby afterwards. And she didn't care anyways, but she just went off. She went back to crack houses and continued, doing all the things that weren't supposed to be good for her. And then when people tried to make her take accountability for her past transgressions, she just couldn't grasp the idea that it is her own doing.
Yeah, it's a lot of when you don't know how it affects yourself and other people, and especially as a young kid. Yeah, that's a sad story.
Yeah.
And it reminds me because I've had teammates in America where they say I have an addictive personality, and they'll talk about their mum or their dad having that as well, and then I'll find out more of.
It's a gene.
Yeah, but it's more the history of what their dad or their mother were doing with that. So some people obviously will be drugs or alcohol, same thing really. But then there's the people that actually manage it and have discipline and have a reason for that. They conduct themselves to say, you know what, I'm not going to be around that environment. I'm going to move forward and discipline myself because I don't want my kids to have the same gene or whatever they call it or addiction in their lives. Anybody else? Any young people?
Your environment a lot
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah, if you choose to. Yeah.
That's true.
What about you, Miley? No, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about you?
I think from people I know, I think it's a lot to do with self-discipline because there's a lot of people around you that are like that would also be doing it, and then
Right.
there's also peer pressure, and you have to have control over yourself and self-discipline in order to ignore what everybody else is doing and just do you.
It's true. It's true.
Good
So,
point. Yes.
what about you, Troy? What do you think?
A lot, like, some people that take drugs do it because, like, their friends or their family members do it themselves. So they probably think to themselves, oh, if they do it and they're cool, so maybe I would do it. So, like, they need to cancel out all the people that say do drugs, do this, and look for the bigger picture.
Yeah, and that's a good way of managing yourself, isn't it? And it's tough to, like Winnie touched on and Tatiana touched on, about the exposure, your environment. It's tough to see beyond your environment, especially with drugs, because drugs is a hooking thing. It's there to hook you, so it dims your view of yourself and the world. So once you're in it, it's extremely tough. Anybody else want to expand on that? And also, people in the crowd, we have our guest crowd today. Want to feel free to jump on the topic as well, guys. But
Yeah, I just wanted to also just say that drug users, it's a sickness as well. Addiction is an illness, you know. So we have to be careful of judging as well, you know, judging people with with drug addictions, because there's so many sides to it as well. So it's very complex, this topic.
To add on to that, a point came to mind. Some people don't know how to manage or be self-disciplined. Have you seen that before?
Yeah, because I understand that some people can't really stop because people have gotten help and so much, and their families have helped them so much, but they keep on going back.
Yeah.
It's just hard to stop.
Progressing.
Exactly. And when as people try to grow away from the drug, they forget that they can't always go back to their mom or their dad that does it in front of them, or their best friends. And that attachment to a friend, because they're addicted to a drug, they get addicted to help or finding help from who they know, which is in their comfort zone. So it's powerful.
Yeah.
And to add on to the whole point of peer pressure, I learned this in school, like the idea of conformity, that when you're in a bigger group, you're more likely to conform to what other people are doing because you don't want to feel left out or you don't want to feel ostracized from everybody around you. And it's also the fact that, how do I even say, it's like, because in society, like within specific groups, it's been normalized that people take drugs. If you're not doing it, then you're going to be seen as atypical, which can be very like penalizing towards you, because you don't want to feel different to anybody else, because you want to fit in, you want to feel like you fit in a specific group, even if it may not be the best thing for you to fit into.
100%. I feel that's a good transition into moving on to counsel and accountability, because that's our friends, or who think are our friends, because true friends won't allow us to be in that drug world. So who do we turn to? Like who can people turn to?
They can turn to religion. A lot of people do. Like when people do, for example, Alcoholics Anonymous, there is that religious side where you take the 12 steps and then you always say a prayer. Oh, help me overcome the things that I cannot control. And then a lot of people end up, either reverting to Islam or becoming Christian or Buddhist, even whichever religion they see fit. Some people I've seen in a show where this guy, he used to be in prison. He was in a gang and now he's a priest. Like a lot of people do find comfort in religion, especially when like they're being talked to in prison by religious leaders and different stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because of the principles that were around that they try to push. Yeah.
They feel like they can have something to lean on because it's like they develop more faith with something that you can't see. So instead of going back to the environment that you grew up in, where you're more likely to fall back into your old ways, you just want to be in a completely new environment, knowing that it has a principle where you can't do those things, so you're less likely to regress back into your old ways.
That's right. Miley, go on.
Just add on to what you said about being addicted to health and stuff. It does get addicting because even it does ruin the family too, or like who you trust and they put their trust in you because they believe that you're going to get better, but you don't. You use their kindness to an advantage to get more and more out of someone.
True.
And it just takes from the family as well that so much that they just like the person that you trust the most shuts you out at some point.
Yeah, and it's like
they become master manipulators.
Yeah, and the ones that you're trying to get accountability or who you're holding yourself accountability to, they can't always fully trust you, like you were saying, and because they can't trust you, that relationship itself is severed, and also at its best, it's questionable. Because would you trust somebody that doesn't trust themselves fully? You can trust that they can get out of drug misuse, but you can also trust that they are not always going to be reliable or dependable. However, our hope, our beliefs should always remain on that they will and can get better and grow from that experience, and turn out to be priests or turn out to be whatever you need to be to help others be picked up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for you, Troy, going into football, right, and being a football player, how would you deal with that kind of pressure?
Probably, I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's tough.
Yeah.
But at least, what about holding yourself? How can you hold yourself accountable if you saw a friend? Because I doubt that you would ever go into misuse of drugs. But if you saw a friend, how would you try and help someone?
I'll probably help them out because I want to be a professional football player, so then I would know if I take drugs or drink a lot of alcohol, I wouldn't make it far in life if I'd do drugs or anything. So
yeah. What about you, Tatiana? What do you think?
If my friend.
Yeah, or anything, any thoughts?
I'd help them, of course, but I don't know, nobody's perfect at the same time, so there's an extent where you can help them because you're not professional.
You can't help people unless they want to help.
Yeah.
That's the other part of it, yeah.
But how do we stay away from, how do we not get into the pressures? How do we stay away from that kind of pressure? Miley has.
I think that you just have to think about they're just not going to get that far because they go into it sometimes thinking that their life's going to get easier and it will take the stress away, but you just got to know that they're not going to get far, or it's going to make the stuff that's making them stress worse, because they're going to think about what they're stressed about and then they're going to think about the problems that's going to come with taking drugs and stuff. So yeah,
it's the placebo effect where people they feel like if they do this then things will get better, and they feel like while they're doing that things are getting better, but in fact they're deteriorating. But because they've already put themselves into that mindset that things are going to get better if they do this specific thing, that mindset, it just doesn't go the way they want it to. That's what we call the placebo effect.
Yeah, it's in general, it's a weak mindset because you're a slave to a drug. Because you're a slave, Like, if you really think about it, no one on earth wants to be a slave, but they find ways of allowing themselves to be slaves. So if you're a slave to a drug, you're a slave to a substance, not even a human being. So if you try to push that picture onto someone, then you could say, hey guys, like, look, think about you're putting this drug above you, and now you're its slave. I think we have a question from the crowd, Elle.
Oh, I was just gonna add on to what you were saying, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%.
So just to add on to what everyone was saying already, my family has come a long way. We've had a history of drug use in my family, and so speaking on accountability and holding other people accountable as well, it is kind of a fine line and a fine balance that you have to find when you're dealing with somebody who is addicted. My cousin was addicted to heroin for quite a few years. He ended up dying of a heroin overdose when he was about 40. And before that, though, it was 20 years of back and forth between the family and him, as well as his younger brother, who is still addicted and, I hate to say, but currently homeless on the streets of Detroit in Michigan. It's pretty rough. And so it was always difficult, though, to figure out that balance between being there for Danny, my cousin, and not enabling him. And it was always a struggle for his mother, especially. And you're talking about families and how they're affected. And I can personally say that it's very hard on a parent to have to watch their child and to see my cousin himself go through it. Yes, he was addicted and it was horrible, but at some point, you can't just give a person a lot of money because you do know that it will be spent on drugs. It's not going to be spent on childcare. So his children were taken away from him. It's not going to be spent on anything, good. So it's a fine line between loving that person and wanting to support them and wanting them to have a house, and he was very young when he got into drugs. And I will say I know how he got into them, which I think is kind of something that young people, you don't necessarily at any age, not just when you're young, but when you're young, it's harder sometimes to realize the repercussions of these things. It is when you're an adult too. So I'm not being ageist, it's not like, oh, you guys are stupid or anything like that. But for him, he was 19 and he did heroin once at a party and thought to himself, I'm only going to do this once. This is not going to be a thing where I'm going to get addicted. I'm only going to do it once. And he had done other drugs before, but I guess it's hard sometimes in the moment to think about is that heroin and other drugs like meth, especially, they alter your brain. And so the chemicals in your brain don't function the same way that they used to. So the addiction is really real. It's not a matter of choice anymore. Your brain has been rewired to seek heroin. And it does, like Aiden was saying, sort of become the god in your life where you are a slave to it, even if you don't want to be. I don't think my cousin wanted to be, but he was, and it consumed him more than his family, more than anything else in his life. And so, yeah, he ended up passing away when he was 40, on my 27th birthday, actually. So, I can, not to get too heavy, sorry, but I can definitely say from experience that when you're young, especially, and you've got that pressure on you, it's hard to think, oh, my future is in jeopardy here. You don't think that, but it kind of is when you're dealing with something as intense as, drugs and opioid drugs and the different things that are out there that will alter your brain to the point where you can't not be addicted. So that was all I wanted to say was, when it comes to accountability, I think that's such a fine line that you got to find the balance for when you're a family member, especially. So
I think everyone here appreciates you sharing that piece of information. It's
Thank
very
you.
insightful.
Thank you.
I feel like it's a little heavy, so I'm sorry if it, to...
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely perfect.
Yeah.
Heroin is a big issue in America, where I'm from, and definitely in the Midwest, where I'm from, in Michigan, is where he's from. So yeah, it's an ongoing issue. I know here as well, though. So not anything you wanna mention.
I actually had a neighbor when I was living in Texas in my own apartment. He lived above me, and we was cool, but he obviously was he admitted that he was a heroin addict, and you could see in his teeth. So that's another part. Like you can see, when you see the detrimental effect of drugs on someone's.
You look like a walking corpse.
That's it, yeah. But so our relationship fell out because I couldn't trust him because we was doing certain things and I couldn't trust him, and.
As you said, a close family member of you was addicted and unfortunately passed away from his addiction. How do you know the balance between actually helping someone and then them taking advantage of you? Because for me, if I had someone very, very close who struggled, I would want to help them, but then at the same time, I wouldn't want my help, like my money or my support, to then push them even more to go use on drugs. So like, how do you balance the difference? How do you like know they're gonna do right and then they're gonna do wrong?
For me, in my experience, I was fairly young throughout most of his drug use, my cousin's drug use. And so the times when I saw him and he was on drugs, sometimes I didn't even realize. But when I got older and my aunt talked about it, I think I don't know if there is a right answer necessarily, or an answer that I have that I can give, because it was always just kind of a guessing game as to where he was in his rehabilitation. So he did try several times to get away from drugs and just have a normal, good life. But I think it gets to a certain point where and this is sort of dark, but when you are around somebody who is addicted, you start to recognize the signs after they've shot heroin or anything. And so his mom became an expert actually at recognizing basically anywhere where he was within a high. She could tell, and when he was withdrawing, she became very attuned to his symptoms and to what he was like. And so, especially if he was violent or temperamental, she would usually try to not give him any money, basically. And so, but she helped in a lot of other ways, where she bought a house for him at one point when he was rehabilitated for a little while, and he was paying off the house to her, And so she, instead of just handing out money, she would buy things that would help him directly, instead of, just giving him money or giving him a ride to somewhere where whose house she wasn't sure of. She would give him a ride to the rehab center where he was going every week, things like that. So I think that's kind of important too, is just when you have somebody who you're close to who, especially if you know that they're using drugs continually, you can definitely start to see the physical wear. And like Aiden said, there was a time, by the time he was 35, he basically lost most of his teeth. And so it's pretty telltale at some point where it's like, you've not stopped. You've not stopped. Even I knew when I saw him, only a few times a year, he's not stopped. And the same thing is happening with his younger brother, my cousin now, where you can tell he's not stopped. Also, I think that, it is an addiction, and so you can't judge, but there's only so much you can do. You know what I mean? Because even with people who we love, even with friends and things, sometimes a trained professional is the best person to deal with someone who's addicted, just because they'll be equipped mentally and emotionally to handle any kind of outburst or physical violence. They'll have training on that kind of thing. And so I think it is careful not to put yourself in the situation sometimes, if you are around people who use drugs regularly, to not put yourself in a situation where you can be hurt. But yeah, I don't know if there's a really right answer for your question. I'm sorry.
I feel like at the very minimum, kind of like what I think your aunt was doing, is leading by example. So in our own homes, in our own place, we shouldn't mirror what it looks like living with drugs. So for example, not having cigarettes or alcohol around in the house, and our conversations, how we conduct ourselves. Because what I learned in terms of leadership is to lead by example. So if people can look at you and they feel like, whoa, that person has integrity, they're disciplined, they look like they're moving with purpose in their life. And for somebody on drugs to see that, so you don't boast it on them, but through your humility, just do you and lead by that example. That can, at the very minimum, that can help for them to see, be exposed to what it looks like living outside of drugs. So hopefully they're convicted to look up to someone and be like, yo, that person is somebody I admire at the very, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I can say on that, because I haven't personally. I've had a ton of friends that have used all sorts of drugs. But once I was in that environment, I didn't fully understand the effects of it. Like you said, you don't know. You could be 40, 50, 100 years. It doesn't matter. If you don't know how it affects other people and affects yourself, it's hard to know how to conduct yourself. But once I woken up to myself a little bit more, I realized what my friends were actually doing, and in my own history, what I've done to other people and to myself, and use that conviction to say, you know what, I'm going to move with the maximum amount of integrity I can within myself. So with the idea of helping other people, so they get to see, you know, a source or something that can shine light in their life. But yeah, anybody else want to discuss? Feel like we can move on to perfectly actually values and principles. So how does values and principles, having the right values and principles, shape drug misuse, and also what values and principles do somebody have that they take drugs? For example, if I was taking drugs, I will value selfishness, because I'll be looking to myself more. I would also value the drug, of course. So I won't value the good things in life, like other people, serving, helping other people.
You'd value greed as well.
You value greed, because again, it's
Hunger, greed.
exactly. So yeah, so guys, what values help somebody positively, and what negative values help them obviously negatively as well?
Do you mean that personally?
Personally, if you've taken drugs, well, I know you haven't, of course, but I'm saying what it looks like in general, in terms of drug misuse.
I feel like maybe, obviously I've never met someone who's suffered from substance abuse, so I'm only speaking hypothetically, but I feel like maybe people who are on drugs or who, you know, are substance abusers would maybe value money, maybe like to gamble or stuff like that, because they probably don't see any permanent value in permanent value in anything that isn't a drug. So they could, you know, want to get with people only for their money so they can fund their bad habits, or they wouldn't be very compassionate to other people because they only see themselves like it's like a one-way street and they don't plan on going back.
And let's wrap it up with drug misuse, but how does love play an effect? Because if you think about it, self-discipline, everything above we said already plays an effect.
Could you elaborate on the love, please?
So for example, actually, I know in my crowd, Havin has a good way of elaborating for us.
Yes.
So with love, drug misuse is if you don't love yourself initially, you won't be able to have you'll then go into the drug misuse. So let's say, I'm gonna give me as an example. I'm just making this up. This is not real. Let's say I don't love myself enough, and then I see at a party there's this line to go do something, and I'm like, oh, okay, I want to go do this, and I know it's bad for me, but I still go do it. That's not having enough love for me, and just doing something I know that's gonna end up eventually taking minutes off my life. And so even love for other people. So if you love other people enough to just to like think about other people or think about yourself before you do something harmful to yourself. Because if you die, you must think about who it affects around you and what ripples you'll cause in the water that you have dropped the pebble in, type thing. Yeah. So it's like the ripple that it would have on all of us, like our parents, our siblings, if we have siblings, cousins, family, grandparents, anyone that love you, so friends as well, people here, the people you're sitting on the panel. If you die right now because of something that you've done in the past, that's like everyone's gonna be mourning over you, and you don't. I know with me, I don't want that to happen. Like, I don't want my family to think of, oh, she passed away, we have to do something for her every year, each day. We have to celebrate her like death, or not celebrate, but like mourn her death. I don't want that, because it's just not, because then everyone cries on that day scarred for the rest of your life. It's just not a nice thing, because you have to love everyone before you think about stuff you do.
And see beyond yourself and have a vision of the implications, like you said. And that's where a lot of people in everyday life fall short, because we do things that are selfish. There's times to be selfish, but there's times, but there's a lot of times where the selfishness corrupts our future and corrupts ourselves, and especially in when we know what we want to become. So it's like I won't be sitting here if I couldn't be sitting here talking like this if I was taking any form of substance, because I would be lying to myself, and I want to be competent enough to know what I'm talking about.
You don't want to be a hypocrite either.
100%, I definitely don't want to be
No one
that.
listens to hypocrites.
Exactly.
No, never.
And there's no respect. Like, you couldn't have a conversation with me, or if I'm going into a career and they know I take drugs, or they heard about through the grapevine, they wouldn't respect me, because they know, like, well, why would you had a good high for 30 seconds or a good high for a day, but now look at the rest of your life. It's it's damaged.
You need to learn to not succumb to your desires.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And added on to self-love and going into a party and stuff, I think with that, you have to love yourself enough to know that you don't need to fit in, and be happy with yourself, and be secure in who you are.
Being atypical is not so bad.
Exactly.
Being
Well, different is
It's
that's
the
the
new
whole
cool.
point. Yeah, it's
Well,
the
it's
new
supposed
cool.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Miley, I feel like he has something as well.
I think people can be selfish with love too, because you want someone you love to be there with you, even if you're doing something that's selfish to yourself too. But it's just not fair, because they can just like drag that person down with them, or just make them do the same thing they're doing, or make them stressed, and just it's not really fair, because you're not letting them go or letting them help you either. So
That's selfishness, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah.
It's stepped away from love. It's
Yeah.
more into that. Oh, I want you for me, and me. You know, the tensions of me. Go on.
Adding on to Maya's point, when you said that love can be selfish, it kind of.
Miley.
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 Oh, sorry, I thought your name was Maya. I'm so sorry.
it's fine.
Miley. Adding on to your point, it kind of makes me think about like euthanasia. Even if it's not like relevant to drug misuse, it's still relevant to her point. In the idea that you love someone so much that you want them to stay with you, but you know that the longer they live, the more they're suffering. So you kind of have to make the decision whether they should be let go, or whether you still want to make them keep fighting for a life that's not really worth it. Because they'll still be in pain.
100%. And that is.
It
That
automatically
greed, that
makes it.
selfishness, it's what we see every day. Like, we see it in our schools, we may even see it in teachers, we may see it in our families. So it's like, how do we deal with that love or lack of love in another person, but have enough boundaries and love for ourselves
To know when to step back.
to step back and to reconvene. Like, okay, how do I approach this situation? How do I go into this person's space without being used, without being damaged, without being blinded by what they're doing to themselves and possibly to you. Hope it made sense in that one.
Yeah.
Troy, you've been quiet, but you're normally,
So the only thing I have in my brain right now is like you would need to love yourself, so you would have the potential to stop taking drugs. Then like, so before, so you need like to love yourself before people love you. So yeah.
You're gonna have to. That's a good point, because when people show true love, and again going back to that point of being a leader, when people show true love and they lead in that love, you see somebody exemplifying a way of life, a way of thinking, a way of behaving, and that love for them, that love and respect they have in themselves but for other people, that's the power that should be we should be drawn to, because it's for they maximize themselves by maximizing other people.
That makes me think of like an exemplary father figure that not a lot of people have.
Yeah, and that's a lot of issues, and going into families. Typically, it's said that the parents, mother and father's role is to exemplify that love. But when no one's showing it within themselves, or a father is taken away or mother's taken away, the kids are then looking into the streets, and the streets, well, we know what the love in the streets have. It's not love. It's selfish. So it's a cycle. You know, it's a cycle.
It's love only when it suits you.
Yeah. And you wouldn't know how to recognize what real love is if you never had it.
I've seen that as well. I've seen that in some of my friends.
Or people, when like some people, they don't know what's good for them. So let's say they finally find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, they get attached. And then because they're so attached, they get blinded by their love, and it's so easy for them to be manipulated or to be put in situations where they shouldn't be put in. So they feel like, and then that's how like abuse starts happening when people are now in abusive relationships, and because they've tried so hard to get out, they don't want to do it anymore. So they end up staying. That's called the Stockholm effect.
Because they're vulnerable.
And if you think about it, they then mask and live in a sense of fear and comfort, thinking that's how love is.
Your upbringing is so important.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Your upbringing is very important.
Exactly.
It could be innate, but your upbringing is your
Exactly.
environment matters.
Exactly. So when I was having actually a discussion today with someone where when people encompass themselves in fear, they're blind. They don't know like how to love. They don't know what love looks like you guys were saying. But when they finally have somebody say, hey, like outside of that fear, somebody say, hey, it looks like this, and I'm living my life like this. Like I make decisions fearlessly. I make right decisions, of course, in the boundaries of love. Because let's not forget, there's freedom in love, but there's a boundary of love which is there to preserve our lives and preserves ourselves as human beings in the way we think, the way we behave. And once we look for those boundaries of love and not of fear, then we can fully embrace ourselves, embrace other people, and then understand like, okay, my decisions today will affect this person. That would be your natural way of thinking, instead of thinking, oh, let me see that drug. Oh, yeah, cool. You know what I mean? And then, because I've seen it in so many ways where little kids, let's say, for example, it disturbs me when I see, and sorry if your parents do it, but when someone as a young kid's walking down the street and their parent is smoking a cigarette, and so the kid's looking up to an addiction from early.
Inhaling that dirty smoke.
Yeah, so they're seeing the habits of an addiction and they're inhaling the growth of an addiction. You know what I mean? So it's not very...
so it becomes normal to them.
Yeah, it becomes a norm, and that norm just captures the fear. It captures, when I mean fear, it captures a way of thinking which is which has its limitations in fear, because the person who's smoking is smoking for self-satisfaction, and they're not thinking outside themselves. So because they're so scared to think outside themselves, they get comforted in that fear. So yeah.
But I feel like in some situations, especially with drug misuse, I feel like a lot of people mistake pity for love. So because you've seen that person and you end up feeling sorry for them, you feel like you're inclined to help them because they're in such a bad state. But you're not doing it because you love them, you're doing it literally because you feel sorry for them. And I feel like that's when it can become toxic. So I feel like people do need to learn to differentiate between just wanting to be empathetic or feeling pity, or actually genuinely having a form of love for that person.
Good points, man. Like, Yeah. Anybody else? Like, you guys are really expanding on this greatly.
Added on to Whitney's Stockholm effect. Yeah. It's like you, because you don't know what love is, you find comfort in something that in order to survive. So like, what do I say? Okay, you've grown up where your parents are both drug misusers, and you find comfort in something that has something to do with that, I'm not sure, in order to like cope with what's going around you. And that can portray how you love other people as well, and how you are in general.
That's how people fall in love with their kidnappers.
Mm-hmm.
That's irrelevant.
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, that is how it works.
Yeah, it makes sense though. It adds value for sure. For sure. But yeah, guys, brilliant, lovely discussions, and yeah, let's go on to our guest speaker. So, the mighty CEO, Joanna.
CEO because it's a female.
I
like that.
But yes, of MVP Media, such a brilliant. You know what? I'm just gonna let Joanna speak about it.
Hi, I'm Joe, and I am the CEO at MVP Media. I'm just happy to be here with you guys today, and yeah, is it about you asking me questions then as well? And
yeah, just talk about your life on what you've seen with the drug misuse, and how working as a CEO, how you've had to be self-disciplined and really create that life and preserve your life for your growth of your business and businesses and ideas and life. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So, as I guess CEO, when I was younger, let me go back again. When I was younger, I didn't really expect to be a CEO. I really didn't think that I was going to do a lot in life. Yeah, I had quite low self-confidence. Yeah, and I was one of those people that was easily persuaded by friends as well. But one thing that kind of kept me going is family support, I would say, and soon after, because I wouldn't say that I had a lot of purpose when I was growing up. Yeah, I would say that purpose came a little bit later. But once purpose kicked in, that was really the point where I was like, okay, there's certain things I just cannot do. You know, there's certain things that I can't be. I have, and like I said, at that point, I still didn't know that I wanted to be a CEO. Yeah, it was just something in me that said, like, you know what, there's bigger things that you can be doing, and it was just kind of kept me going. But also finding my passion, which is people, and working with young people as well, also gave me a kind of a network, where we're all like-minded. And so that's why I also spoke to you about, football, because when you're in that environment, right, when you Troy, when you're with your peers and you all have the same type of goals, that becomes your network, and that becomes your force as well. And those are also the people that will keep you accountable. Whitney, you want to get into law. Again, there's going to be people that you're going to be with that are going to become your peers.
Like a team.
Like a team. You all have big ambitions, and I really feel that you have to. It's so easy to sometimes to say, I believe in yourself, but it is that, it is very hard to believe in yourself.
Especially when you're surrounded by people that are always going to put you down.
Yes.
Because you have to learn, my mom always tells me, you always have to learn to block people out no matter how hard it is. So you do have to, find that confidence within yourself. So it helps that she always, lifts me up. I thank her for that.
And also with this, how drugs play effects, it actually hinders you believing in yourself, because you believe in the drug rather than yourself.
Exactly.
You're an enemy of, you become an enemy of your own progress.
Exactly. And thank God that you didn't do that.
Exactly. Yeah, that as well. But also when it comes to vision as well, knowing that there's something bigger than you, I would say. I feel like I am in service of my young people. I'm in service of you guys, and I think you do know that, right? You do see that when I'm with you guys, that it's about me making sure that you guys are okay. So if I have something that's bigger than me, that's kind of what keeps me on the right path.
So you feel like you found your purpose?
Yes, I found it quite late. I would say I was like late 30s. I would say actually late 20s. I would say where I found my passion, found my working with young people. It's something that not only that it comes naturally to me. but I also really enjoy. And also having this conversation with you today, you know, it just makes me feel like, again, I have to step it up, because what I'm hearing here as well in the room is like, yeah, you're very, very able young people, and all of the things that you've been saying is really relevant, you know.
Have you ever had to encounter someone or had to dealt with an employee or a friend or family that kind of hindering themselves because of the drugs or some form of an addiction?
Yeah.
That slowed themselves, and
Yeah.
how's that experience and what happened?
Let me put it this way: there's when the drugs is a result of a lot of issues as well. Yeah, that there's a lot of things going on in your life, anyways, and this is also another extension of it. Yeah, so there's a lot people, friends that have gotten into addictions. It was in the beginning cool. Nobody was thinking about the future. Nobody was really thinking about the repercussions, because when you're young, you know, you're free. It's all banter. It's all fun. But then seeing it turn around for them as well to it becoming a real, addiction, that was very scary. And after a while, you can't. There was only certain things that you could say to them. And I think, like I said, there was a lot of issues going on before that. It's not just they just woke up one day and was like, I'm going to try it out. It wasn't that. It was things, not dealing with situations, not dealing with things that are happening to you. I think that's
coping mechanism. That's what me
Yes.
and we were talking about that earlier. That
Yeah.
I said that it's a lot of the times it's a coping mechanism, and if you do realize a lot of coping mechanisms aren't healthy at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But why do we do that? Because we don't want to feel that pain.
It's always
Right?
the easy. Some people
It's the
do prefer
easy
to
way.
take the easy way
Yeah.
out.
Exactly. And it's sometimes you have to go through that pain. You have to go through, and to become better and come out of it. But what people want to do is they want to hide that. They don't want to deal with that. And yeah.
They don't want to be penalized.
They don't want to be penalized. Exactly. They don't want to, So these are all reasons why, things can happen in people's lives to go into the, into drug abuse. So it's really important and that's why what we do at MVP is really important, because we work with young people. So you find your passion early, because I'm telling you, when you find your passion early, you don't have time for that, right, Troy?
Yeah.
Tell me about you. When you talk about football, you're so passionate, aren't you? You love it.
He does.
Right? Yeah, we were just talking about the Germany-England game, and I'm crushed. But
You were born in Germany, weren't you?
I was born in Germany, yes, yeah. But it's about purpose, and it's about about really seeing yourself up there. Honestly, guys, that I think is the most important thing. And I'm saying it because I didn't do that enough when I was growing up. I really didn't see myself in this position. That's why I really want to instill this in all of you, is that you need to look at yourself higher. You need to look at yourself, as you need to respect yourself. That's, when we talk about love, that's really, really important.
People will never respect you if you don't have any respect for yourself.
And it's hard sometimes. Exactly. And it's hard because the world tells you to do one thing, but there's something in you that says like, no, there's something else I want to do, and you gotta listen to that. Even if the people around you say, "Why are you so boring?" Oh, it's okay. Let them think that, because right now, people that I thought I was boring back then.
Where are they now?
Look at me now, So yeah,
So,
but that's the truth, right? And so you don't know where you're gonna be in 10 years' time. But I know that if you guys work hard and work on your craft, do what you need to do, it's gonna work out for you, And you're gonna reach heights that you never thought, which is I'm in the position, I never thought that I would be in this position, and it's mind blowing, and it's I'm living a dream every day because this is what I do, and that's why for me it's very, very important to raise the next generation of leaders, and I'm very, very happy to be here because you guys are fire,
Powerful
people. You guys have a lot to say. You have really good, and that's exactly what MVP screams to the world. Our young people are amazing. They're amazing. Don't mess with them, because they know what they want. They know what's happening, and that's why it's so important that we also do these podcasts, because we need people to know. We got this. We know this. We know what's happening.
And inspire others.
And inspire others,
other young
exactly.
people as well.
Inspire other people to keep dreaming, to do it, to go on a different path. Yeah.
You do not need to be a product of your environment. That's my last sentence for today.
Yes, Whitney.
There we
I
go.
think that's very important.
It's very true.
Very true.
But yeah, lovely, lovely words from you. Thank you. And guys, again, brilliant,
Yes.
brilliant crew, brilliant
Yes.
team.
Yes.
So
Audience, you've been amazing.
audience. Oh
You
yeah.
know?
Round of applause for the
Amazing,
audience.
guys.
say that's a wrap up. Brilliant conversation, very powerful, and I hope you guys learn from this and we can move forward, elevating, refining, and growing.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.